Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Breakpoint podcast. We are here to give you guys a little bit of an insight into collegiate tennis, kind of the recruiting process. That's the goal here. And three areas that we're going to hit on this podcast. First off, we're going to bring on some college coaches directly on the podcast, and we will be interviewing them, letting them talk about their school, talk about what they look for in a player, their coaching strategies, things like that. Secondly, we're going to be bringing on current college players who are in the thick of it right now, talk through why they made their decision that they made on the school, what was their recruiting process, junior careers, all that kind of stuff, give you guys some insight there. And then thirdly, which I think is pretty important, is ex-college players who are now out of college tennis, who maybe didn't pursue professional tennis and are in the professional world, and kind of some applications of what are some of the pros to pursuing college tennis, even if you're not going to pursue a professional career. Because I know Taylor and myself both played, we loved it, enjoyed it, and there's a lot of application that collegiate tennis has to life after college tennis. So that's a little bit of an overview of why we're doing what we're doing. And so I will let Taylor start with giving a little bit of a background into his junior career.
My name is Taylor Foote. I grew up in Georgia playing junior tennis along with Elijah, and that's how we first met. We were both highly ranked state players, and while each of us had different backgrounds in tennis, we each share a passion for the sport and a passion for the process of going from junior to collegiate player. When Elijah and I were growing up, a lot of the times we were traveling, us, our parents, our coaches, doing a lot of travel to tournaments, speaking with collegiate coaches, and really getting a feel for the whole process from the junior side all the way up until recruitment and playing in college afterwards.
Yeah, I'm Elijah Melendez. I started tennis when I was about 8 years old, played baseball, played football, played a lot of different sports before tennis. Got into it pretty competitively when I was about 8. Georgia is a huge hub for junior tennis, so the competition was really, really high, really, really tough. Taylor and I, we grinded training, playing tournaments.
Played each other several times as well.
Of course, yes. So with that, with it being highly competitive here in the Southeast, I didn't do a lot of traveling out of the Southeast, and so that led to, there's pros and cons to that, but on the flip side, a lot of the coaches were going to the Kalamazoo's and stuff like that, super nationals, and I wasn't at those tournaments. And so, like you said, the recruiting process looks different for everybody, and so it looked a little different for me not getting that exposure at an earlier age. So it came maybe a little luckier later, and we'll get into a little bit later into each of our particular recruiting processes. But that's a little bit about me. So it ultimately leads us to, why are we sitting here and talking about this? What's the point? I'll let Taylor talk to you guys a little bit about it. We've been building for about the last year now, and we're pretty excited about it.
So Elijah and I have built an application called Prospect Tennis, and this is a tool that maximizes exposure and provides all the data necessary for a prospective collegiate player to make their decision most accurately as possible. And so we take data from over 1,000 schools that offer tennis programs for both men and women in the NCAA Division I through III, as well as NAIA. And this data encompasses athletic, academic, and general criteria. And really, when you're picking a school, you don't just want to pick something for athletic purposes. This is your place for the next 4 years.
You want there.
Yeah, you want to be there. You want to be there. You want to have a good time, but you don't want to have too good a time. But you want to be focused. You want to make sure it's a good academic school and sort of plan out your future, not just based off tennis.
Yeah.
You should be basing off other things as well. And so we created this tool to encompass all those categories and provide a hierarchical list of the schools that apply best to you.
Yep.
And so I came up with this product when I was doing my recruitment process, and because I was so frantic and there were so many schools to look at, I didn't really know what schools fit me best. And so I was able to pick out all this data that was in the ether, in the internet, formulate it together and put it into an Excel spreadsheet, and then tabulate which schools were the best for me based on my own individual preferences.
And from that list, so you made that thing, how many schools ended up being on that list?
There were over 900 schools on that list. and I went to Elon University. Elon University was the number 2
Yeah.
match score on my list. And so I had a great time there. I got a great education. Some of my best friends today are from Elon, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. So I think the tool really provided me with beneficial insight, and our goal is to bring that beneficial insight to the world
Yeah.
and to the junior tennis community and the parents and coaches of those junior players. The traditional recruiting method is going to tournaments, getting in front of these coaches, getting film in front of them virtually as well, and really just trying to maximize your exposure as best you can. When you're a top player playing at Kalamazoo, all the top Division I coaches are going, and all the guys are going to be interested in these top players that are playing the tournaments. That's just how it is. But these tournaments are only so big, and there's tons of other players that are very good, and many of them that haven't even reached their peak are viable prospects for collegiate coaches. And so it's how do you get in front of coaches the best way you can? And a lot of it is plug and play, reaching out to coaches, seeing what tournaments they're going to be at, showing them your video highlights before you're trying to meet with them at the tournaments.
When you're a junior, there is such an idea that it's big D1 or nothing.
Yep.
You see all the top kids in your academy. You see all these players at the tournaments, winning the tournaments. There's coaches there watching them. And you're like, I want to go to Alabama. I want to go to Georgia. I want to go to the Pepperdine. I want to go to these schools. And if I can't, then there's nothing for me here. And that could not be further from the truth. There are way more schools, and you will have an amazing time at so many different options. So the best advice that I can give, take time early, invest into it, look into it, really understand it, and you'll be very, very far ahead. And there is a school. If you want to play college tennis, there's without a doubt a school.
And so what was your recruitment process like? You started your sophomore year?
Yeah, tennis was in the family. My brother and sister played tennis. They stepped away from it once they started to decide college tennis or not. And my dad was just like, hey, if we're going to keep playing this, either play it for fun or let's push through to college. And so I wanted to push through to college. I wanted to go to Alabama really, really bad. And so I put all my eggs in that basket. I wasn't really in the rankings to have the coach really look
to be on a full scholarship.
Yeah. And so I really didn't do a lot of outreach to a lot of different schools. I did some around. Georgia has Hope Scholarship, so I was not naive to not look at some Georgia schools because there's some pros to staying in state. But I put all my eggs in Bama, and I didn't get it. And I was sitting February, supposedly going to school in August. I started to talk to some other schools like Kennesaw State, Liberty. There were some other smaller D1 schools that I was looking at, and even D2s, D3s. I looked at NAIA, Georgia Gwinnett. I looked at a lot of different options, but I wish I had started there. Yeah. And I started there, it would have been a lot less stressful, but I didn't know. Yeah. I got really, really lucky. I went and played some futures and did really well in some qualifiers, and I got Georgia Tech to give me a walk-on spot at the last second. I didn't know what to do. I just said, I want to go to Bama, and that's pretty much it. And that's just not how it works.
And I see the problem with a lot of players whose parents aren't tennis players and don't have that, let's say, collegiate athlete background, really in any sport, is they don't really know all the options that are truly out there.
Yeah.
And it's not the parents' fault. It's just the lack of experience. So you really want to surround yourself with people who have experience in collegiate sports and tennis specifically, and be able to model your recruitment process based off what you're saying. Yep. And I think that is the goal with what we're doing here, is to help provide transparency on the recruitment process, help maximize your exposure, help make it less stressful. And there's just so much opportunity and so little is known about it in collegiate tennis.
Yeah.
So my recruiting journey has some similarities and some differences. When I was playing all these junior tournaments, we were traveling week in, week out, not really socializing, doing the whole junior tournament circuit grind, and I ended up burning out end of my freshman year. And I quit, and for 2 years I played football, but at the end of that 2-year stint, when I wanted to get back into tennis, I didn't have much of a ranking. And so I knew on the inside that my level was better than what I was on paper, and I had to go prove it. So I was rushing, playing tournaments, talking to coaches, finding their email online, reaching out, asking them what tournaments they're going to, trying to get into those tournaments, and really just trying to get in front of them. I also had some opportunity to send coaches video to get them interested and let them get a preview of my game, which helped. And ultimately, how I got to play on Elon was I had reached out to the coach and I had sent him match film of matches when I was playing tournaments recently. And he liked what I had, but he was on the fence because he had never seen me play in person. So he had me come play against some of his players that were actually on the team at the time. And I beat one of them. And then he had me play against the guy that he was recruiting to be a walk-on, and I ended up beating him. And that's when the coach offered me a spot. I ended up earning a scholarship 2 years later, and the college tennis experience for me was in waves, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was one of my best experiences. The camaraderie that college tennis brings, especially compared to junior tennis, is just like off the charts.
Yeah.
No matter what your method of getting in front of coaches is, you really just got to focus in on it and just grind and just keep on pressing these coaches until you eventually get an opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like investing, right? It's like early and often. I think if you start early, like both of our stories, we both kind of got in a frantic panic right at the end and stumbled into some opportunities. Like you had to prove it, you had to earn it, and you did, right? And so did I. I would not have gone to where I did unless I had gotten out there and earned it. And that's what coaches are looking for. Is they're looking for your players who are standing out, who are hungry, who want it. Yeah. So, and back to that earlier point, there's so much information out there, right? So much information. How can we give people a place to start that process, start looking at it? And that's ultimately what we saw, that gap is like there's not a good place to really start looking and seeing what's the best fit for me.
Yeah.
Someone else can help me, and someone else might know somebody here and kind of point me there and be like, oh, I can vouch for this person. What's best for me?
Yeah,
right?
That's
what we're looking for. We can give through the app. You put it in, you can change the preferences, do what you want to it, and it will give you those results back of what fits you, your ranking, your academics, all of that.
Yeah.
That's all encompassed in the one platform.
Yep. And I will also say that many players use recruitment agencies, and these recruitment agencies can be beneficial, but they're often expensive because they're individuals or groups really doing the groundwork. The groundwork to get you recruited. It's a lot of hours, and this platform takes out those man hours, and it's also way cheaper than any recruitment agency that you'll ever come across. Right now, it is free. You can go download the app at www.prospecttennis.com.
And in the App Store.
And in the App Store. We are live, and you can go sign up for free for a limited time.
Yep.
Go on there, sign up, check what it's about, and really we hope that it provides the best exposure and the best option and a de facto recruitment tool to help you get to where you want to be.
Yep. No, so that sums up what the product is, why we're doing this, what we're doing here. So I wanted to lay the foundation here on this first episode with that. Going forward, like I said, we're going to be getting some guest speakers on. We're getting a lot of coaches, current college players, ex-college players, giving you guys a lot of informative content into this college tennis journey and process. That's the goal for this podcast. It's the Breakpoint podcast. We'll be releasing episodes weekly. I'll be having different individuals getting on here and talking with us and giving you guys some really cool information to apply to your college tennis journey. So be on the lookout. We'll be releasing episodes every week.